Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for waiting. We would like to resume with the program. We would like to, first of all, invite the members from the technical committees of Open Data Promotion Consortium and their activities. So we would like to, first of all, invite Mr. Koshizuka, the chairperson of the technical committee. My name is Koshizuka from Tokyo University. I'm serving as the chair of the technical committee. Mr. Sato's slides were very colorful with many drawings. Mine's going to be very boring and plain. So this symposium was held about 1 year ago, and this is the 1 year has passed since the last symposium. So I would like to first of all, explain about what we have done over the year. And since new activities have started this year, I would like to also explain about that as well. And in terms of the members, it's not that I myself is working alone. I am surrounded by wonderful members. I'm serving as the chair, but as a vice chair, we have Professor Takeda from NII, Professor Naka from University of Tokyo, Mr. Hiramoto from METI, also Mr. Fukami from University of Keio. So we together discuss over many technical issues. In terms of the main gist of the activities of the committee, technical committee makes considerations on different technical standards that were necessary to promote open data. So, for example, API and data standardization. So these are the two sides of the wheels to study the specifications. And in one way or another, we need to standardize. Of course, the standardization comes in different styles, but with the technical outputs produced here needs to be distributed with the international standard. So that will be the ultimate aim. And it's not only that, but the technology and the system that can be distributed. How do we build a structure that will allow for long-term use and long-term operation? So that is also examined as well. I will not go into the details of this diagram, but this is our 3-year policy. So what we plan to do in the first, second, and third year. Now, in terms of our activities in 2012, 1, 2, 3. We had 3 technical committees, and we had 1 collaborative meeting with the cabinet secretariat, and then we had the 4th technical committee after that. And one of the main outcomes of last year is, roughly speaking, 2. One is that in the committee, we're not actually developing a system. We're creating documents and specification for the data. So last year, we developed 3 technical documents. First is the technical guide on creating data for open data. So even if you want to open data, it's very hard to do it for the first time around. So the know-how, the guide has been put together. And that's the first document. The second technical document is that there are different types of data, but particularly the statistics data by the government. If you want to make this machine readable and programmable, that's probably where the needs are the great. So we would like to narrow it down to CSV format. And of course, this is not such a technical issue. When you do an open data, if you're a computer software developer, this is not a difficult topic. But because data is developed into different formats, we need to document this in a data standard in a CSV format. And the third document is the MIC's there's a common system that's used by MIC's AIP, which we decided to put together as a system specification. And this we created the 2012 version. In addition to that, number 1 and number 3 that I mentioned earlier is for people, for organizations, for people who want to open their data going forward. So in the working level meeting for e-government open data hosted by Cabinet Secretariat, over here, we made a proposal. Based on the studies that we have done so far, we made the following recommendations. One is the two that I have mentioned earlier. And based on this, this became a sort of a basis for the documentation of this working level committee. And these are and so all writings here, but these are what we have actually recommended to this working level meeting. And in order to deliver an output, we have conducted different surveys on overseas open data related technologies. And based on that, we created the 3 technical documents that I have described earlier. This year, what are we doing? So technical guide for open data, what we have created last year is only for CSV. It was very pinpoint. So we need to develop something that's more comprehensive because the government and municipalities are promoting open data. In order to support this, they needed a practical guide to open data. Therefore, in this consortium, based on what we have developed last year, we made into a guideline that is easier to use for the civil servants that are involved in promoting open data. So this is the policy for developing the guidelines. This is the guidelines positioning. And second part is the specification brush up. We use the semantic wave, and it's infrastructure based. In order to carry out this business, basics are already prepared. So RDF and such likes will be used to create infrastructure. And whatever we have been able to develop last year, we will brush it up this year, so that for those who are looking for a good technical specification for open data, we can recommend it. So this is sort of the document that we are aiming to develop. And we are working with the API standard on this. And here, these are items for brush up, a lot of details again, based on what we have carried out last year. We looked at the structure of different vocabularies. We tried to make it consistent. We also try to work on consistency with METI and IPA's IMI. In terms of API, there's a lot of different things that we need to work on. So this year, we will make sure we carry out these activities. And some of the findings that we have discovered over 1 year, as we get involved in the open data initiatives, there's a lot of things that we have felt. But one thing is that it is very diverse, and that is that the main players' organization is diverse. So aside from the central government, you have regional municipalities, utilities, private companies, schools, educational institutions. And from the technical side, the technical level of people who are involved also diverse. Some are extremely high level, some are very amateur in the IT level as well. And also the license model, for example, modification, responsibility, this is diverse from organization. In terms of business model, it varies as well. And the technology itself is not stopped. This itself continues to progressive. So it's still very dynamic. So how do we promote this as we see diversity in various aspects? And this is the challenge that I think has been posed on our technical committee. And just last point, as we operate technical committee, there's a recommendation, and that is that this consortium should be central in drafting open data promotion declaration. And this is a proposal from the technical committee members. So we see progression in open data, but we need I think maybe there's a little more push that's necessary, maybe a little more leadership that's necessary. And of course, Open Data Charter was adopted this year, but we want not only the government, but we want many private sector companies to be involved as well. So, for example, in this declaration, we will say that this consortium will proactively promote open data in Japan based on the following 5 principles. So, for example, it is the social mission to open the data with public nature. Data's in immediacy, accuracy, and comprehension will be prioritized. It must be provided in a programmable, readable format, provide in an easier-to-use license, and we need to improve the governance of the public and promote innovation in private sector. So, in a short and concise manner, we would like to develop this declaration which promotes the direction of open data in Japan. So there's a governance committee and there's technical committee, there's other committee. We will collaborate so that we can draft an open data declaration so that next time we meet you, we will be able to formally declare this. And so I ask for your continued assistance in support of our consortium. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.
続きましてデータガバナンス委員
Next speaker is Ms. Yuriko Inoue, Chairperson of the Data Governance Committee. Let me give you a report of the Data Governance Committee. In our committee, well, first of all, last year, what are the achievements have we made? I'll start from there. And then, what are we doing this year? What are the challenges? That will be covered afterwards. Looking back on the last year, the activities last year, well, this Data Governance Committee, what do we do in the committee? Public data which would be subject to open data, handling of such public data in relation to legislative frameworks, especially in particular to copyrights. We organize our thoughts as to how secondary use could be promoted. So we are a committee that discusses this topic. In fiscal 2012, the first thing we did is that the handling of public data with respect to laws and regulations, basic ideas were organized. And the content has been put together. And then we submit that to the e-government open data executive meeting to be used for guideline development purposes. As for concrete programs that we have conducted, we did a case study, which is Information Communication White Paper, which was introduced by the official from MIC. We conducted a case study based on Info Communication White Paper in opening up data. What will be the challenges? This is a case study for identifying the challenges. And as a result of this case study, we yielded 2 results. One is that for the purposes of promoting secondary use, something like terms of use was developed. And item number 4 on the list here. What was used for the case study purposes is the Information Communication White Paper of the past. But new white papers and public data, when that is put together, what are the things that you have to pay attention to create data? Especially when you ask an outside party to prepare data, for such public data, you need to sort out the rights that belongs to the third party. So we developed a draft contract to organize and sort out these rights problems. So as for these terms of use, 2013 April, from that date, information communication white paper was made public as open data. And terms of use is being used for this as well. And when ministries ask an outside party to develop certain data, we do have a draft contract that's been developed. And we would continue to refine this in the governance committee, and we would be disseminating that information afterwards. So that was a brief explanation of our activities last year. Let me go back a little to go back to the basic idea, the basic stance. Why is it that in this open data strategy, data governance has to be considered in relation to legal frameworks? Well, the basic idea is that public data that is owned by the government, some of that information, the government or the state may have copyright. So for the purposes of secondary use, you need to sort out this issue of copyrights. So in order to deal with the copyrights issue, there is going to be transaction costs involved. And if these costs come in, this could have the effect of impeding further secondary use. Now, public data that's generated by the government, such data would be created even without the incentive of a copyright. Mr. Sato, the cartoonist, talked about promotion of secondary use in the world of cartoons. So he introduced to us such an attempt. It was quite interesting. Cartoonists may want to exploit your copyright to make money. So such business models may exist on a closed world. But as for public data that's generated by the government, you don't need to have an incentive such as a copyright. So there may be no basis for protecting the rights, but the rights have been granted anyways. So if there is going to be some transaction cost to sort out these rights, this could impede and hinder secondary use. So this is a paradoxical situation. So what would be the solution to this paradox? We need to think about the proper way of data governance. So that's what we do in our committee. So what to do? How do you go about solving this problem? Well, this is something that I talked about in last year's symposium. There's a number of solutions. One is that copyright law may be revised so that as for data that's created by the government, we could conclude that there is no copyrights involved. Make this public domain. Or we can also say that the government, the state has copyrights, but the government would waive the copyrights. But amending the copyright law would take a lot of time. And abandoning and waiving copyrights altogether, there is a whole range of complicated laws involved, including national property law. So realistically, what can we do? Well, we can still say that the central government has copyrights, but a standard license could be adopted so that without individual negotiation, the rights could be sorted out on an online basis. Then this could have a consequence of promoting secondary use. So in our data governance committee, we think about licensing, adopting the idea of licensing for the purposes of promoting secondary use. So what are the licenses that should be adopted? We looked around the world and studied this. What struck us, or what first came to our mind, is that the Creative Commons license, CC BY, is being adopted in countries such as Australia, New Zealand, or some countries in Europe. So that came to our attention first. Other than that, there's open government license in the UK, and in France, there's open license. So in each country, certain countries have their own proprietary licenses, but these licenses do have compatibility with CC BY of Creative Commons. So what to do in Japan? Attribution would be requested, but on top of that, secondary use should be allowed over a broad scope. So that's our basic stance. And there is also need to be compatibility with licenses of other countries so that a mashup could be possible. And it has to be machine readable. So these are the viewpoints that we have considered. So last year in Data Governance Committee, Creative Commons license CC BY was the basis of our consideration. So I talked about our case study. As for information communication white paper, we conducted a study. And this white paper, that was the subject of our case study, as was introduced by MIC, CC BY publication was conducted. But what would be the problem here is that this white paper is not entirely written by government officials. They bring together pieces of information from various sources. So if there is a third party owning copyrights and other rights, what would happen? When the central government doesn't have the rights to start with, licensing such copyright would not be possible when they don't have the rights themselves. So as for the data where the rights are owned by a third party, this became the biggest issue. We conducted studies. So when there is a third party involved with rights, we want to make that explicit. And then based on that, CC BY would be used for making that data public, as was reported by MIC. I think I've used up my time, so let me talk about the major activities of this year. Currently, we are considering terms of use of the websites of different ministries and agencies. The central government would like to conduct a review of uniform rules of use of homepages. So they have come to us at the Data Governance Committee to come up with an idea of a terms of use to be used by different websites of ministries. So that is why we are now deliberating on this draft terms of use. And what has to be considered? I believe that there are three things that we need to consider. Based on the experience of studying the white paper last year, Creative Commons standard license, there has to be compatibility with such standard license. And as for data, when a third party owns rights, you need to be careful about this. So that is point number one. And secondly, of the information that's on the website, surveying laws, there may be certain restrictions, such as on maps. So you need to think about how that will be indicated on the site. And malicious adaptations and doctoring of the data could be considered. So other than copyright law and other relevant laws, do we need to place any restrictions? And if there is such a need, how do you go about integrating that on the website? These are the things that are being considered by us now. We still have not reached agreement. We're still wrestling over these issues. While wrestling, we intend to develop this draft terms of use by the end of this year, and we would like to communicate that to the Cabinet Secretariat. Starting next year, we want to develop an open data manual so that the procedure for making such data public by ministries and agencies, we want to come up with a easy to understand manual after conducting interviews of different agencies and ministries. So that is what we are currently considering now at the Governance Committee. Thank you very much for your attention. Next, Chairperson of the Promotion Committee, Mr. Ichiya Nakamura. Mr. Nakamura, please. The University of Tokyo is well endowed with great facilities. My name is Nakamura from Keio University. We've listened to Mr. Sato speak. He said that if you open up information, some exciting things can happen. You will be able to make 70 million yen, which was very straightforward. I work at the intellectual property headquarters of the government, putting together discussions about whether to provide copyrights to publishers. So my position is very delicate. But Mr. Sato, what he's doing is very exciting, very straightforward, and punk. I believe that we need to increase such cases in open data so that we can appeal to people in a very easy to understand and straightforward manner. I believe that's the mission of the committee. Having listened to the discussion, we feel that the landscape that we are looking at is different from last year to this year. Last year, the waves were high, but we held a commitment ceremony that we should set sail. But this year, despite the fact that waves are high, the ships are making their way to the other shore. Last year's activities of ours are fourfold. One is Ideathon and Hackathon of weather data. This year, we will be conducting an application contest. Last year, the idea was to make that. And this year, what people have made is brought together for competition. Next is that we organized an open data symposium, and we're holding one today. Number 3, we conducted self-initiated awarding, and this year we'll be doing that as well. And number 4, information dissemination at the committee as well as on our website. And this year our focus is outside of Japan. This is how it looked last year. It's a lot of activity. And this year's activities is as follows. First, enhancing information dissemination to outside of Japan. We conducted symposium in both Japanese and in English and streamed that in both languages. We also put together English website of the consortium. Next is participating and organizing in participatory events and sponsoring them. One is open data application contest. 7 demonstration projects are conducted by MIC, and we use that open data to conduct an application development contest, and the awarding ceremony is going to be held on the 13th of March. Next, problem-solving type ideathons and youth case contest for solving social problems. This is a co-project between MIC and METI, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. This is quite unprecedented. Ideathon is to be held in Tokyo, Osaka, and Matsue, or actually they were held in those places. And as for youth contest, we are distributing pamphlets at this reception desk. I hope that you'll sign up. Number 3, self-initiated awarding. Excellent open data programs are to be awarded by our consortium in an arbitrary fashion. And this is the comment of the chairman of the screening committee, which is me. And I said as follows. This year's awardees are quite diverse. They are from the central government, local government, large cities, local cities, towns, corporations, universities, NPO groups, and other voluntary groups. It's very varied. And they have a very pure sense of public interest and high level of enthusiasm. I do hope that people like these would gain a lot of respect and they will be successful in their businesses. Something good. And we will be conducting this year as well. And number 4, sponsoring open data events. Open Government Summit is one of them. Third pillar is local government subcommittees are to be launched. We obtained the needs from the surveys of consortium members. And there's the information demonstration projects conducted by local governments under MIC, and there are some advanced cases of open data at the municipalities in Fukui Prefecture. We want to capture some of the challenges as well as whether such needs can be dealt with by the local governments. And the results would be fed into the manual for government employees, which will be considered at the Data Governance Committee as well as Technical Committee. And this is how these subcommittees are being participated. There are 7 groups from local governments and 11 corporate members. We want to increase the membership, so we hope that more of you would participate in these programs. Just the other day, we conducted our committee meeting, and about 100 people participated from various positions, from government, corporations, and academia, and they provided some constructive opinions and open data. We have come this far in Japan, but at the same time, we have only come this far, so that information was shared amongst us. We hope to be able to lower the threshold so that the corporations as well as students, many people can take part in our program to offer their cooperation. Last year, at the end, at our committee meeting, open data programs, when you conduct a international comparison, we said that we were ranked 19th, but we heard that we are to aim at #1 ranking position within a matter of 3 years. And as we heard from a parliamentary secretary this year from MIC, we are aiming at becoming #1 and by 2015. So we have expectations of that, and the consortium is responsible for achieving that target. So I do hope that you'll continue to provide your support and understanding toward our activities. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.